what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
All right, welcome in. It's a Friday night live stream, Radio Baloney Live. I am your host, Richie Baloney. Looks like we got Howard Hardchicks in the chat already, wishing me a happy Christmas, apparently. Well, Merry Christmas to you too, sir, in August. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Hope everybody's had a good week because we got lots of news to go over. First off, it turns out, we'll go through everything first before we get into this story, but it turns out that Canadians hate Trudeau. Who would have thunk it? Who could have guessed? Apparently, the majority of Canadians view Trudeau as an incompetent liar. An incompetent liar. An incompetent liar.
Small fringe minority.
Apparently, it's not, though, Justin. Apparently, it's a majority of Canadians see you as an incompetent liar. So we're going to talk about that. We'll take a look at the poll numbers in Canada. I feel like I've kind of neglected Canadian news a little bit because there's been so much going on in the States with the Trump assassination attempt and then Biden stepping down from the nomination and the insane Pavlovian conditioning that we're seeing on display regarding Kamala Harris. So it's time to do some Canadian news. And this one is one that I think will please people the world over. A majority of Canadians view Trudeau as an incompetent liar. We'll take a look at some of the polling. We're going to take a look at this story at Chloe Cole. She's a detransitioner. She was brainwashed when she was like 12. Had a double mastectomy at 15. Was put on, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. And anyway, she's not happy with the way it went down. She's suing her doctors, but they wrote a little bit of a hit piece in honor in the LA Times, of course, the LA Times. So she has written something here, a little article. We'll go through this. In fact, we'll probably just read the whole thing because it's worth reading. The insane cultiness of the gender mob, the gender cult. So, we'll hear from somebody who's fighting against that, somebody who knows it from the inside. Kamala Harris. Of course, we have to look at Kamala Harris. We're going to look at a bunch of stuff from her, some stuff that I've put together, and I think you'll quite enjoy it, actually. Of course, we'll get into the latest Trump stuff. Hopefully, I haven't missed too much. It's been a crazy, crazy week for me, so I have not been able to do quite as much as I would normally or prepare as much. But I think I've got some good stuff here for you. Latest stuff on the Trump shooter. We're going to take a look at that. Just some kind of generalized election stuff. We're going to look at this Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists, which I thought was hilarious. Classic Trump. And it's the only thing he can do is go onto the offensive, because when we see this, you'll see she just throws out a litany of all these fake charges against him, and there's no point trying to go through them one by one and say you're lying. It just doesn't work. You just have to go back at them with their own game, essentially. And he's kind of an expert at that. He's an expert at Donald Trump is an expert at turning the tables on journalists. And he does it very well here. And it's funny. We'll get to all this stuff that I've curated over the week. What have we got in here? I mean, we have squirrels doing water skiing, which is awesome. I don't know how anybody couldn't. Look, there's a dog who thinks he's a cat. Save that one for later. Look at this. George Takei's weighing in on things he shouldn't be talking about again. Got all kinds of stuff. It's just a giant mix. We got like clip from the movie Airplane here. We've got Gorlock the Destroyer. We've got so much. I've got so much for you. It's going to be fun. Lots of political stuff too. Plenty of political stuff, obviously. And we shouldn't forget, we've got another Again, we're going to do this every week until Justin Trudeau is no longer in power. So what do we do? Every week. And we just can't get an election here. But every goddamn week, I have to do one of these Grok versus Trudeau's. So Grok is the Twitter AI. And none of the other AIs will play ball with this. They won't go near this with a 10-foot pole. They'll just refuse to work with me. But Grok will. So I have it write a poem about Justin Trudeau. There are 2 details it must include every time. One is that he must be doing blackface. The second is that he must get a vaginoplasty. And then we build a story around that. So I built a story here. I think Grok did a pretty good job with this one, if I don't say so myself. I think he did a great job. I think on some level, Grok enjoys it. Then, of course, we have the puppy palate cleanser, which we haven't done formally for a couple of weeks, but it's time to bring it back. This is when things get too dark, because you know how things can get too dark these days. Politics can get so dark and depressing sometimes. Not that that's this whole stream, but it can get that way sometimes. And then we go to the puppy palate cleanser. And the best thing about the puppy palate cleanser, and I screened these beforehand, at no point does Justin Trudeau bust into the shot and try and give these animals cross-sex hormones or give them sex change operations, which is what he wants to do. He wants to do that to every living creature on Earth. I'm certain of it. But let's get to our main story. Hey, we got Rumbum in the chat. Good to see ya. Rumbum says, what if I told you that Radio Baloney is neither a radio nor baloney, for that matter, but an escaped Rumble AI, purely sustained by the joyous gravity wave, creating sounds only the high in trans fats can produce? Well, you got me. I thought I was covering that up pretty good, but Rumbum, you got me. You got me. So now that you know what I am, the question is, will you still listen? Will you still listen? I think that you will. All right. Let's get into this. Majority of Canadians view Trudeau as an incompetent liar. An incompetent liar. It's according to a poll. Many Canadians simply want a change in national leadership. And that's because their lives have gotten much worse. And they view Trudeau, who is the current leader of Canada, as an incompetent liar. An incompetent liar. How about that? How did it come to this? Well, you just have to kind of pay attention to what's been happening in Canada for the better part of a decade, and you can see why people would think that. I mean, let's see. Incompetent liar. So everything's gotten worse. He apparently has no plan for anything. His mass immigration. He's the guy who said that that the budget would balance itself, and we'd have to forgive him if he doesn't think about monetary policy. And he brought in millions of people with no idea where they're all going to live, not seeming to care. When he took over, you didn't have to wait 18 hours in the emergency room. But the liar part. The liar. Majority of Canadians view Trudeau as an incompetent liar. Liar. Why is that? I mean, I don't know. I guess just like everything from the huge to the little, like the most petty. Petty lies about who pays for his trips. Lies about the carbon tax. Lies about immigration, how much, the process. Lies about gun crime and crime in general and who commits it. Lies about parents concerned with what their kids are being exposed to in school. That's right. They're all far right, all those parents. And, you know, lies about the trucker protest. I mean, just lies like on every detail of the trucker convoy and the trucker protest. Lied about the Emergencies Act. Lied about foreign interference in Canada's elections, including what he knew and when he knew it. It's just the same old thing. If he's talking, he's lying. I mean, that's just a bit of the lying. It's been constant. It's been nonstop. I think my favorite lie of his was that he couldn't tell us how many times that he'd done blackface, because if the number was more than the number that he gave us, it would make him seem as if he was lying.
I have a slight learning disability.
Yes, it seems that he does. Seems that he does. Let's see. Rumbum says it's funny because to be good at lying, you actually need to be at least somewhat clever. So he can't even do that right. No, I think what Trudeau has, I mean, he does have a kind of raw political talent. He has kind of an animal cunning. I wouldn't say he's not smart or even clever, but he just has this kind of animal political cunning somehow. I mean, he has won elections. You have to keep in mind too. I mean, like he's had, everything's been in his favor. When you have the media so fully in your favor, it's a lot easier to keep getting elected. And he barely, has got, the last couple of elections, he lost the popular vote. These were minority governments. He won with actually, coincidentally, about the same percentage of the vote as Hitler did in 1933. Isn't that interesting? I'm not saying that he's Hitler. I'm just saying that he's awful. Okay. So let's get into this. A poll released Sunday by Abacus Data for the Toronto Star suggests Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his liberal policies are overwhelmingly unpopular in every region of Canada and among both sexes. Among all respondents, the survey found 7% of respondents have an impression of Trudeau that is very positive. That's 7%. Have an impression of Trudeau that is very positive. 7%. What is wrong with that 7%? They must have gotten dropped on their heads when they were babies or something. I don't know. 17% were somewhat positive. Again, I mean, not as bad as the very positive, but still, I don't know, some sort of a brain issue. 20% neutral. Again, how are you neutral on this? You just have to be paying absolutely no attention whatsoever. 20% somewhat negative and 39% very negative. So we've got 59% either somewhat or very negative. I'm surprised it's that low. I would have thought it would be at least like 90%. But the thing is, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that thing. Scott Adams said that 25% of the people are always wrong about everything all the time. And I think there's a lot of truth. I mean, I'm not, it's not like absolutely 25%, 20%, 27%, something like that. But, it's a fifth to a quarter of people are always wrong about everything all the time. And that's Trudeau's base. So you see here, 7 plus 17, so 24%. 24% of Canadians are always wrong about everything all the time. 24% of Canadians are either very positive or somewhat positive about Justin Trudeau. And that means they have been wrong about everything from the moment that they were born. Every decision they've ever made has been wrong. They've done everything wrong, because that's how you have to be to still support Justin Trudeau. It is truly just it's a calamitous failure of reason, or just common sense. But there you have it. You're always going to have that, Let's see. Dramus Eve says that he hates Trugina. And I have to say, I appreciate very much the use of the name Trugina for Justin Trudeau. We're trying to popularize that here on Radio Baloney. We'd like to make that big. We'd like to get that out there. We want to see hashtag Trugina everywhere. We want to see that trending on X, formerly Twitter. So I might very much appreciate that, Dramus. In fact, you get another applause for that. All right. So 59% of Canadians are on the ball anyway. Let's see. Rumbum says, truth to true debt. True debt. That's a good one, too. Is like the Ark of the Covenant to Nazis. Just looking at it causes a Joan Rivers too close to a heat source effect. I think I get your point there, Rumbum. And I like True Debt too. But we're kind of a True Gina channel, I think. So, but you can keep it by all means. I like the True Debt too. Keep using that, you know? It's just kind of a True Gina channel. That's all I'm saying. But you keep using it. It's not a problem. I still like that too. In fact, I'll give you a clap. All right. Those results are remarkably similar by gender, with only 24% of men and 25% of women having an impression of Trudeau on the positive side of the scale. So those are some very high levels of estrogen in that 24% of men. Almost the same percentage of women. But Trudeau is down amongst women. Like, women are no longer majority supporting Trudeau. He's down with women at 10% or something like that, or more. Maybe we can take a look at that in a bit. And the thing is that with women voters is that once you lose them, they're gone. Because the thing is with women, it's not all women, obviously, but just in generally speaking, the mean, once a woman loses respect for a man, he's dead to her. He's dead to her. She'll never go back again once she loses respect. I know this from having lost the respect of many women. So I can tell you this with fact. I believe this is true. And the thing is, Trudeau, he came out, he was the star, he was on the magazine covers, he was this more of a world leader than the leader of Canada. This internationalist. He was this this global darling, not for that long. It certainly didn't last past the blackface stage for Trudeau. But he was the cool thing, right? And he had massive support amongst Canadian women. But then he became kind of a loser. Then he became kind of a dork. The videos of him singing, Bohemian Rhapsody at the Queen's funeral. And the general perception of Trudeau just started to go down and down and down. And he wasn't cool anymore. And then the female vote started to lose respect for him. Once they saw that the public attitude towards him was changing, that affected the female vote. Again, not all women, but but there's a trend there. So all that's left is, I think a lot of cat ladies and some very low T, very high estrogen level men who probably collect like My Little Pony stuff, I'm guessing. And male feminists, right? Male feminists who just spew out a bunch of feminist gibberish, hoping for one of the feminists that they're orbiting to get broken up with badly and have too much of their box of wine, and then he's in like Flynn. That's who's voting for Trudeau. Rumbum says, now this is interesting. This is an interesting point here. And he's talking about the 24% of men who have a positive attitude towards Trudeau. He's saying that he wonders if they have lower T than the dude beating on women at the French Olympics, the France Olympics. That's an excellent point. I'm going to say less. That's what I believe. Less. I think they also would be get beaten up quite badly by the dude beating on women at the Olympics. I don't think the Trudeau supporting men would fare any better, quite frankly. All right. Trudeau's approval rating is the lowest in Alberta, where 52 indicated a very negative response and 19% a somewhat negative response. So what's 71%? See, that's more what I would think it would be for the whole country. But, you know, Alberta is a very sensible province, I will say. Toronto Star columnist Susan Delacourt notes that the last time her newspaper, an Abacus, asked Canadians about their feelings for Trudeau, men were markedly more negative about the Prime Minister than women. That disparity has vanished in the latest survey. Well, this is what I'm saying. He's no longer the cool kid anymore. They don't respect him anymore. Canadian women don't respect him anymore, and now he's dead to them. They're ready to move on. They're ready to get their groove back with somebody cool. Let's see. In his Substack analysis of the poll, Abacus Data CEO David Coletto said it is clear that Canadians' negative feelings towards Trudeau are more intense than they have been at previous points over the past 4 years. Yes, that's because for so many people, they reached that line where all of a sudden politics now matters, where now they have to pay attention. And things they just want to let slide, you know, no longer can they do that. Now they're going, oh, wait a second, something is seriously wrong. Okay, now I have to pay attention. Now I have to do something different. I have to change my mind. Now I'm going to have to vote for the mean guy, because that's really like the whole the NDP and the Liberal Party of Canada and most of the media, certainly the CBC. They're really the bedrock of their whole thing, of their whole support for the Liberal Party, or just for leftism, right? So the NDP has got their own interests, although they seem to just be now just the Liberal Party's bitch, apparently. But the whole thing is just, it's all based on conservatives are mean. They're the mean ones. They're the dad. You know, they're not the mom, you know, the empathetic mom who spoils them, right? Who spoils everybody. They're mean. And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to aesthetics and just mean. They're just mean. And then everybody will get to a line where they will find a line in their life and in their career where they will say, we need somebody, we need dad. Now, we need dad. Mama's kind of screwing up the household. She's messing everything up. The credit cards are maxed out. The place is a mess. She doesn't know what she's doing. I got food poisoning last week. We need dad back. We're going to go move in with dad now. And that's what's happening. Rumbum says, whenever a male feminist speaks, all I see is subtitles pleading, quote, please, please, for the love of God, respect and sleep with me. That's it. It's a strategy. It's a mating strategy, and it's obviously one. And even women, even feminists will tell you when they're polled, they find male feminists creepy. They certainly don't find them attractive. It's so obvious to the rest of us, right? It's so obvious to really, even to them, even to the feminists, it's obvious. You know, they at least have respect for the guys they disagree with, but don't kowtow to them. They won't admit that, but they do. Again, like, there's a reason that 50 Shades of Grey is the best-selling book of all time. Let's see. It says, more important, in my view, to understanding public attitudes as well as public reaction to the Prime Minister is the big gap between those who have a very positive view of him, 7%, and those who have a very negative view, 39%. That's a big gap. He's done. I don't know why he's hanging around. I mean, if it really is his genuine goal to just simply destroy Canada, to wreck Canada forever, really. I mean, there's already generational damage that's been caused by him. But to just really put the final coffin nails in, I mean, I'm starting to think that's the case. That he really does just want to wreck Canada for some globalist reason, for some Klaus Schwab reason, for some World Economic Forum reason, for some UN reason. Because he's got to know that it's over. He must know that it's over. It's not going to change. These numbers. Let's go to the polls. Here's the most recent one, July 28th. 18 points. At the very worst, it's still if they commit with the projections right now, if they perform at the worst of these projections, they'd still have a majority government, the Conservatives. At best, I mean, it's, a historic win. Odds of winning the most seats. Conservatives, 99%. Liberals, 1%. Conservative Party of Canada majority, the odds, 99%. 99%. He must know that it's over for him. He must know. So why is he hanging around? Is it just ego? Because I can't imagine that it's going to be an ego boost to him to wake up the morning after the election and see the headlines, conservative landslide, historic win. And maybe it is that he just simply wants to wreck Canada for, I get globalist reasons or environmental reasons or something. It's strange. I mean, it's an odd thing for a politician to be this unpopular and just still cling on, outside of like an actual dictator. So it's interesting. It's interesting and horrifying. It's interesting and horrible and horrifying and tragic. Because everything he's saying is that he's going to keep jamming people into the country. He's not going to stop. Like, he's going to get as many people into Canada as he can. Rumbum says, once you've been given such corrupted power, you don't let it go easy, I guess. Maybe it is his ego. Maybe he thinks this is all providence and he's, the gods are going to deliver him some miraculous victory in October of next year. Hey, we got Antipop in the chat. Good to see you, sir. He says treason reason. Yeah, I mean, I get, you start to wonder at this point because again, listen, he's saying that he's still going to keep jamming people into the country. He's not signaling any slowdown in immigration, in, permanent residencies or citizenship, anything like that. He's maybe, they're giving some talk to, maybe cutting down on the student visas or the temporary work visas. That's not going to happen. That's all baloney. He's going to keep jamming people into the country. Why? He knows it's wrecking the country. Like he has economists that can tell him, like, look, we're in a population trap right now. This is really bad. He's going to keep doing it. You have to wonder, like, it's never felt like he was working for Canadians. He's never even sounded like he likes Canada. He said that Canada has no national identity, no central core identity. He said that Canada was the first post-national country. Canada's the first post-national country? What?
Not in this lifetime, Sonny.
And that's nothing but pure and simple old-fashioned communism.
I mean, how dare he? How dare he? So Canada has no core identity? How dare he? How dare he? He's talking about himself. It's always with the far left, and I'm sorry at this point, Trudeau is not a liberal. He is not a liberal. Okay, the Liberal Party is not liberal. Trudeau himself says that the Liberal Party is progressive, right? The Liberal Party of Canada is a far left party at this point, just like the NDP. The NDP and the Liberal Party are competing to see who can be the most far left commie crazy. Trudeau is not a liberal. Trudeau is an extreme leftist. He's a radical leftist. And we've seen that through all of his policies. And he's never given us any indication that he actually gives a shit about Canada, right? No core identity for his post-national country. He's talking about himself. He has no core identity. He's post-national. He sees himself as a citizen of the world, as a leader of the world, as a global world leader, not a Canadian leader. So, yeah, so who is his master? I mean, he's not coming up with these plans himself, is he? Obviously, he loves the World Economic Forum. I mean, the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, is a trustee of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab, who's no longer the leader of the WEF, I know, but he loves Trudeau. And he bragged about how he'd penetrated over 50% of Trudeau's cabinet. It sounds like he's working for that, not us. It sounds like he's working for the World Economic Forum and not for Canadians. It sounds like he's working for some global order. Again, I mean, why would you just keep doing something? I mean, of all the everything he does is terrible, right? All of his, 2035 plans, every car will have to be electric in Canada, which makes absolutely no goddamn sense. No plans for how you're going to deal with the power grid, where all of a sudden you've got all of these vehicles that have to be charged constantly, often in like minus 40. That's not for Canada. These aren't good plans for Canada. This isn't thinking about what's good for Canadians. It's thinking about what's good for somebody or something or some other organization. Let's see. We got AJ McLean in the chat. Good to see you. And he's making an excellent point here. The other world leaders don't even like him either. Yeah. I mean, the people that he meets up with, from the UK or France or wherever, they're no better than him. But he's not cool anymore, right? So, they don't want his stink on them, I think. Let's see. Rumbum says, pretty sure Freeland holds his reins, and she has hers held by World Economic Forum or BlackRock, Vanguard, or all three. Yeah, absolutely. She's an actual idiot. Freeland is an actual idiot. She had absolutely no qualifications. She used to be a journalist. Journalist is for like 80% of them at least. It's a dirty word, journalist. How did she get to be the finance minister and deputy prime minister? It makes no sense. I mean, the only thing that makes sense is just DEI. He said that it's promised 50% of the cabinet would be female because current year. But Freeland is a trustee at the World Economic Forum. She loves them. They love her. And I guarantee you they have the same awful, terrible plans. None of them are working for us. I can tell you that much. Anyway, let's move along. Actually, first, before we get there, I just want to talk about this squirrel. Because I love this squirrel. This is fantastic. So, for one thing, that's just awesome. That's just an awesome thing. I don't know how this comes about. I've got an idea, though. But it's awesome. It's awesome, right? It's awesome. How do you get a squirrel to water ski? That's the question. How do you get something so awesome to happen? Because you never really put those things together. Water skiing, squirrels. Nobody thinks of that. So how does that happen? How do you get it to actually do that? And I know how. I can tell you how. Over time, you have the squirrel, and you convince it that Justin Trudeau is determined to give it cross-sex hormones and a sex change. And the skis are the only way to escape him. That's the only way you can do it. And I think that's what happened here.
What is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of your women.
That's right. And also to watch water skiing squirrels fleeing from Justin Trudeau and his cross-sex hormones and sex change surgeries that he wants to give to squirrels and all living creatures. Hey, Freedix, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. And Freedix has given $5, which that gets the donation horn. Thank you, sir. And so early in the chat. So early in the chat. Thank you. And I get, once again, it appeals to my greed wonderfully. Perfect. He's saying best squirrel ever. And that gets another blast. And Friedrich says the squirrel convinced Justin to get a beaver. And by beaver, I'm pretty sure Friedrich means a vaginoplasty operation.
What does that mean?
It means that I think Justin Trudeau wants to be a woman. I think that's what it means. Just love getting money. Friedrich, good to see you already. Good to see you too, sir. All right, so let's get on to the next story. I really have the best chat. I have the best chat on Rumble, I think. All right. To the LA Times, get a life. I have lives to save. This is Chloe Cole. And Chloe Cole is a detransitioner. They put her on puberty blockers when she was 12. They gave her a double mastectomy when she was 15. The doctors told her parents that if they didn't do this, that she would kill herself. They said, would you rather have a dead daughter or a live son? That's how evil they are. That is how evil these people are. They should be put in prison. They won't, because there's too many people complicit. The media, doctors, politicians, all complicit. It's not going to happen, but that's what should actually happen. Rumbum says, hold on a second. We got to go back to this for 1 second. We're talking about the squirrel now. It is actually from Rumbum. It is actually a well-known phenomenon. All you have to do is put that on blast AC/DC and put down a pool, and you'll see the most wild shit. So if you just blast Highway to Hell and you just put like some water skis in a pool, a squirrel's going to jump on it and just start water skiing. I've got to try it. I've got to try it. That's up next on my list of things. I would love to see that. I would love to see it. I like squirrels. Okay, so Chloe Cole. So this is in her own words, and I think it's worth going through this. And just reading this whole thing. It's not too long, but this is the human side of all of this, of the human side of the medical horrors of, gender transition for children, of the gender ideology, right? What they euphemistically call gender treatment, right? Gender care. This is the real side of it. This is the real human side of it, of what they risk doing when they do this stuff to children. It says, I'm a survivor of a medical gender transition that began when I was only 12 years old. I travel the country sharing my stories in hopes of saving other children from the horrors of the gender affirming care I received. I advocate before state and federal governments to pass laws that will prevent kids from accessing these mutilating surgeries and drugs. According to a recent hit piece from the Los Angeles Times, this simply makes me a right-wing icon. The rhetoric used in their so-called journalism is not only wrong, but flat out dangerous. Well, I went and read the LA Times piece, and it's just, again, it's the framing. We see it with everything. It's just the framing, right? And of course, they leave out all of the relevant new information. Like they leave out the fact that the UK has banned gender-affirming care for minors, puberty blockers, surgeries, cross-sex hormones for minors. Sweden has. I believe Denmark has as well. This is, the dominoes are falling over in Europe because they started before North America. And now they're seeing because it takes a bit of time, right, for data to catch up and also for the lawsuits to catch up when people realize what's been done to them as children. So it's going to be a while in North America before this happens, though. We're a bit behind, but it will happen here too. It's just when. And when it happens, it'll just go quiet. All of a sudden, everybody will just go quiet, and it'll be because of lawsuits. It'll be like it never happened. Again, because everybody's complicit. Right? Government, actually both sides of the government, doctors, media, all complicit. In the crime, complicit in the crime. But this is how they do. It's all framing. So they just try and frame her as a right-wing icon, and then just every lefty will just write her off. Her experience means nothing. Let's see. Freya Dick says that Gender Garden. That's a good one. And then also let the kids figure it out on their own. Yeah, that's what makes sense. Because in the vast majority of cases, the dysphoria just evaporates once they go through puberty and start to realize what it's like to live in an actual, adult body. And Friedrich says that builds character. And yeah, I mean, not only that, it also doesn't destroy them. Doesn't destroy them. Rumbum says lawsuits, and parental charges is the only way it'll end. You're meant to protect them, not use them as a virtue signal puppy handbag. Reminds me of something Morrissey said when this is years, probably decades ago now. Madonna was adopting all those kids from Africa, and he said she'd probably get bored of them and then have them all turned into handbags. I don't know if she did that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Hey, we got Xerxes in the chat. Good to see you, sir. Okay, so let's continue with this. Let me be clear. I am not a pawn or a particular... hold on. Let me be clear. I am not a pawn for a particular politician or party. I never wanted to be famous, especially not as a result of the most traumatic years of my life. I am sharing that trauma, which I'm still working through to this day, and partnering with those who want to pass laws that protect kids from being coerced into dangerous and unnecessary procedures. And she is, I think, about 21 or 22 now. One second, you guys. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I know this coercion firsthand. At 12 years old, I was struggling with severe mental health problems. I spent hours and hours on social media listening to transgender activists who convinced me that I must have been born in the wrong body. If only I was a boy, my problems would all go away. Again, 12 years old. 12 years old. Do you think that maybe 12-year-olds might be fairly impressionable? They might, they're going through changes. They may not feel totally comfortable in their body. Maybe that's normal. Maybe that's normal for 12-year-olds to be kind of insecure. I remember being 12. A very confusing time. I didn't think I was born in the wrong body. And, nobody told me that. Nobody ever suggested that to me. Thank God. But this is literally, this is what they call gender affirming care. This is the gender ideology, the foundation of which is just an infinite series of abstractions. It's metaphysics. It's totally unmoored from reality. And it's a cult. And that's how you have adults telling 12-year-olds that they might be born in the wrong body. That's the only thing it could possibly be. That's the only reason a 12-year-old could have anxiety or feel uncomfortable in their body. The only possible reason. Evil, right? Did I use the word evil before? Yeah, I'll keep using that word, evil. I went to doctors who took advantage of my youth and naivete. Rather than treat my numerous comorbidities with mental health counseling, they handed me, at age 12, a prescription pad for permanent pharmaceutical and surgical intervention. No one warned me about the lifelong ramifications of this decision. No one told me about the ever-growing mountain of evidence undermining the pro-transition propaganda I was being bombarded with. That's because they're evil. What else do you call it? What else do you call that? Just because they're in a cult, it doesn't mean that they're evil. Most cults are, not all cults are evil. Some of them, I don't know, like orgy cults. I don't know. Is that evil? I don't know. This is evil. Oh, and no one told me about the ever-growing mountain of evidence undermining the pro-transition propaganda I was being bombarded with. This part, that's still happening. It's happening to kids, and nobody's telling them about the Cass report in the UK. Nobody's telling them about the changes in Sweden, where they banned these treatments. Nobody's telling them about the leaks from WPATH, the World Transgender, or the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, WPATH. Nobody's telling them about the leaks from that, right? They're still doing this stuff to kids and not telling them or the parents about any of the counter evidence. It's the same evidence that the LA Times irresponsibly dismissed. Several European countries, including those who pioneered these treatments, have stepped back from recommending that kids undergo these drugs and surgeries. Just this week, a High Court judge upheld the British government's emergency ban on puberty blockers because the treatment has very substantial risks and very narrow benefits. And the area of gender medicine is based in, quote, remarkably weak evidence. Yeah, we could have told you. We could have told you that five years ago, 10 years ago. It was really about 5 years ago that this really started to go into the mainstream, especially with the media. But it's just simply obvious, remarkably weak evidence. It's a remarkable claim, right? That a 5-year-old can tell you that they're born in the wrong body, and you just have to believe, and that's just true because a 5-year-old told you that. That's a remarkable claim. That should really require some remarkable evidence, shouldn't it? Apparently not. Not for every media outlet. When was the last time that mainstream media, like the CBC, we'll talk about Canada. When's the last time that CBC actually did an investigation on anything? Did an actual real fact check on anything that mattered? In an objective way? It doesn't feel like it is. CBC is just simply a propaganda machine at this point. They just read what's put on their teleprompter by the producers. But you'd think, I mean, they still have brains, right? You'd think occasionally they'd be reading this stuff and going, "Oh, this seems a bit off. This seems a bit off. Sex changes for kids? That seems a bit off." You'd think so. I don't know. I guess they just love their jobs too much. Let's see. Rumbum says, didn't the UK ban it as well? They did. Yeah, they did. Xerxes says, just heard a father in California got full custody of his son, whose mother was pushing for the boy to question his gender. He said child protection supported him. I saw that story as well. I might have something in just the X version, the X part of this stream later. I can't remember if I bookmarked it or not, but I saw the same thing, and I'm amazed it happened in California. So let's see. Yeah, Rumbum says, is laughing. CBC doing any deep dive investigation, non-biased journalism. Good one, radio. I know, right? I know. They used to actually do that. Like, I'm talking a long time ago. Not anymore. CBC, BBC, CNN, they're just reading off the same script on everything. Like, literally, I think that the feed onto their teleprompters just comes from the same source. I think it's the same with but certainly in any government-funded media like the BBC or the CBC in Canada, right? They're just reading they're reading the same script every single time, and it's not a script that's written by us or anybody that matters. It's a script that's written for the people that Justin Trudeau is serving, and the people that Justin Trudeau is serving are not us. Let's see. Okay, let's continue. A recent leak of files from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health confirmed that the standards for transgender care that doctors like mine use to treat kids aren't grounded in medical or scientific research. This has just been obvious all along. Multiple WPATH doctors admitted that there are huge uncertainties in this field of medicine. They also discussed how they actively suppress scientific studies that disprove their claims about gender-affirming care. Yeah, so there's a big story written about it by Michael Schellenberger. That's who the files were leaked to. It was thousands of files, internal files, including Zoom meetings, and it's truly shocking. I made a video about it. By the way, I've gone 54 minutes without asking for anyone to subscribe to the channel. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, and it's just going to save you a bunch of time, because instead of having to look up Radio Baloney, it'll just be there. So that saves you time. Also, liking the video was great as well. All right. And I think after this story, we're going to cut off the YouTube stream, because in fact, I probably should have cut it off before this one, because maybe this is the one that gets me nuked off the channel. Who knows? But we'll do it after this one, because we've already started. All right. But anyway, check out my video on it. Subscribe to the channel. Check out my video on it. And also go to Michael Schellenberger. You can see him on X, and he's got a Substack. He's did a big, long thing on it, and it's totally worth looking at. When it comes to treating kids, one WPATH doctor compared explaining potential side effects for fertility with a 14-year-old to talking to a blank wall. Compared explaining potential side effects for fertility, that's a pretty big deal, right? That's a pretty important factor here. With a 14-year-old talking to a blank wall, saying that they can't they don't understand. None of this makes sense to them. They're not in a position to give informed consent for any of this, because they just simply can't put themselves in that place. They don't live in adult bodies yet, right? They're not adults yet. They can't reason about whether or not they want to have children. Now, the important thing about WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, is that it is the authority, the fake authority, the phony authority that all the other relevant bodies rely on when they appeal to authority. So when the AMA is talking about the gender the euphemistically named gender affirming care, WPATH is the fake authority that they appeal to. The Endocrine Society, all of them, psychological associations, they all appeal to WPATH as the authority. Well, WPATH says that it's good. WPATH says this isn't a totally insane, reckless, monstrous crime that we're committing. WPATH says that. And WPATH is fake. Go look at the video, look at the Michael Schellenberger stuff, look at my video on the leaks from them. You will see they're fake. It's not based on science. They're making it up as they go along. It's totally obvious. You can check it out for yourselves. I mean, that is, when we talk about woke dysfunction, this, it used to be that it was, some university was getting rid of a boulder because somebody thought it was racist. Literally, that's a story. Check out my channel. You can see that, right? But the woke dysfunction gets into everything. And as it goes higher and higher and deeper to more and more important institutions, it becomes more and more dangerous. This is one. It got into the woke mind virus, got in and started rotting out the AMA and the American, Psychologist Association and the Endocrine Society and the relevant same bodies in every other Western country, right? And appealing to just a fake organization, an organization just relying entirely on fake data, WPATH. This is woke dysfunction. So woke dysfunction has caused God knows how many children's lives to be ruined, to be sterilized, to live bad lives with serious side effects, all kinds of physical problems, even disabilities going forward. Not to mention the psychological damage, right? This is just one place where woke dysfunction is ruining people's lives. Just imagine everywhere. Just imagine when they start using DEI to decide who can get a surgery or not, right? They're already talking about that. In Canada, that's already a discussion. And in fact, in some cases, it's actually already happening. Once it gets into everything, it is going to cause, it's not just crazy college kids anymore. They're everywhere. And it will ruin your life. If you don't think so, talk to somebody who used to live in the Soviet Union or somebody who escaped from Cuba or people living in Venezuela right now. Such casually horrific admissions confirm that there is no such thing as informed consent when it comes to gender affirming care for kids. Obviously, again, this is another, it is woke dysfunction. It's only woke dysfunction that can shroud somebody's mind with so much moral confusion that they could believe that a child could give informed consent to stunting their own puberty, to never growing into a properly formed adult body with properly formed reproductive organs. Only a cultist or just a complete idiot could think that there's anything even remotely morally decent about that, anything that's anything morally sane about that. Obviously, children can't give informed consent. We don't let them drive cars. We don't let them buy cigarettes, right? We don't let them buy alcohol. Obviously, a 5-year-old can't just tell you that, oh, I think I'm born in the wrong body. Now you have to treat me like this and put me on turn me and make me, give me a lifetime of medicalization, force me into a lifetime of medicalization. None of it makes any sense. It's all totally incoherent. For one thing, they can't decide whether or not it's all a social construct or whether it's they can't decide whether it's nature or nurture. I mean, how can you absolutely be born in the wrong body? Definitely. But also gender is a social construct. That doesn't make any sense. That's incoherent. And these are like the foundations. I mean, these are the huge chasms in the foundations of this whole insane gender cult. And it really, and obviously it is unbelievably, it is insane that any doctor wouldn't notice this. Any, psychologist wouldn't notice this. This incoherence, and they would just continue to go along with it and pretend that children can give informed consent to basically what are experimental medical experiments. In any case, this is the evidence that my doctors ignored and manipulated when they told my parents there were only two options: a dead daughter, or a living son. This was a disgusting lie, and it's a lie that changed the course of my life forever. A disgusting lie. Did they know that it was a lie? Or were they genuinely that stupid or brainwashed or whatever? You have to think that somewhere, I mean, you had trained professionals, right? Supposed experts. They must have noticed some of the inconsistencies. They must have known that at least there was a chance that this thing they were doing was a monstrous crime. Again, they should go to prison, in my mind. It's not my fault that Democrats are too afraid of radical transgender activists to support common sense protections for kids. They're willing to ban kids from smoking, from alcohol, and in some states, even from tanning beds. But they draw the line at drugs and surgeries that kids cannot fully understand, that doctors regularly coerce kids into signing up for, and that turn kids into lifelong patients. Yes. Medicalized for life. When young adults who support token leftist causes take a stand and advocate for their beliefs, they're held up as courageous activist icons. When I speak out against kids getting double mastectomies and taking experimental drugs, I'm torn down and my reputation is shredded. I urge those who would leap to conclusions about me to truly listen to my story. Think about the teenage girls you know and ask yourself if you would want this for them. My story is important. All detransitioner stories are important. And I think, sadly, it's not going to be until the lawsuits really roll in that you're going to see change here, like as we are seeing in Europe. LA Times, how disgraceful. That was the, again, LA Times is the same outlet that called Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy. Just scumbags. Scumbags. I call it evil. What's the other word? What other word could you use? I mean, she's telling her story, which is a tragic story. She's still suffering medical complications now. I mean, she's incredibly brave, and she's living through an enormous amount of trauma because the people that were supposed to protect her hurt her, damaged her permanently for an ideology. And also for money, too, right? Because people made money from this. Doctors, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals make money. Shameful. LA Times. LA Times. Who's worse, LA Times or the New York Times or the Washington Post? I don't know. They're all about the same, I guess. Get a life. I have lives to save. Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking. These are adults. They're complicit. So it's outlets like the LA Times that are complicit. And it's going to take a lot for them to admit that they were wrong, that what they were doing was wrong. But what they've been doing is evil. They probably never will. They'll just go silent about it. Once the tsunami of lawsuits starts rolling in, they'll just go quiet about it. Anyway, I mentioned earlier that stories can get a bit dark on here. So I think it's time to go to the puppy palate cleanser. When things get too dark, things get too depressing, it's always nice to check out some puppies. And there's a cat there as well. Cat hanging out with the puppies. They're having a good time. It's so nice. And I screened this. You don't have to worry. Justin Trudeau doesn't burst in and try and give the puppies cross-sex hormones or sex change surgery. So don't worry about that. Nothing traumatic like that going on. All right, let's check out the chat quickly here. Rumbum, biggest reason the government should never be paying any news station. They should fear them, not be buying them. Yeah, exactly. This Pierre Poilievre, he's been pretty solid on defunding the CBC. I hope he does. They'll be gone immediately if they lose the government funding, because they're too big and bloated and incompetent to make money on their own. And they've proven that, right? They've proven that they cannot make themselves even remotely profitable on their own. They can't. So they need the government handout, because they're terrible and nobody in Canada likes them or listens to them or wants anything to do with them. They made themselves completely irrelevant by being really an extremist, a far left extremist radical outlet that does not represent Canada. And the polls are showing that right now. Xerxes says, exactly like your video on media saying Trumpers are weird. Yeah. And thank you for watching that, Xerxes. But yeah, it's just, it's really strange. I mean, those American outlets, they're not subsidized by the government, but they're all on the same page. They're clearly getting talking points from the Democrats, because they even phrase the talking points the same way. That's not by accident. Rumbum says, this one BS organization agrees with me. They must be right. Screw all the others that are basing things on real scientific evidence. Well, this is the woke dysfunction that we talk about, right? So WPATH, the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, right? They have for the radical leftist media, they have the high ground, right? And they have the intersectional high ground. So it's politically incorrect to point out that they are a fake organization. They have fake data. Nothing is based on actual scientific evidence or research or nothing. It's just opinion. It's just assertions that they make. And you can see this when you watch my video on the WPATH files. You go to Michael Schellenberger and look at his story. He's the one who broke it. He's the one that they leaked all of those thousands of files to. But it's just simply wokeness dictates that they have the moral high ground, and they're at the top. They're at the top of the intersectional mountain. So they just go with that because they don't want to be politically incorrect. Because then the media will attack them, like the American Medical Association. They don't want to get attacked by the media. And God knows, you know what? The people at the top are probably woke lunatics anyway. They're probably very happy to do it. They're very good at infiltrating these organizations, these institutions, and just taking them over. Rumbum says, parents may have known, but we live in a world where your kids are taken away if you don't fully support that they think they are a fire truck, and so on. Well, that has happened to parents. That has happened. It's horribly tragic. Horribly tragic. You want to get away from the very, very leftist, and I don't say liberal anymore, the really radical leftist places. Well, here's from Xerxes. He says that I worked as a family health public health nurse in MPLS and the insanity of the George Floyd riots. My employer started CRT employee training, so critical race theory employee trainings, and then the LGBTQ nurses started literally taking over. Yeah. Yes, because they can shame, right? And they can cast their magic spell. Of calling you a hysterism or a phobe. and which gives them power and is supposed to shroud your brain in confusion and fear. And unfortunately, if they run the institutions, they've got power. Right? That's the dangerous thing. I mean, look at what's happening to Amy Ham in British Columbia. Check that out. Check her out on her story out on Twitter, and it's horrible because she won't say that men are women. They've been putting her through legal hell for 2 years, wasting probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers to persecute this woman who is sane, who has just said something sane but politically incorrect. Let's see. Hank Quinn, welcome to the chat. So, Baloney, do you think the Trump assassination attempt was a double shot by libs to get rid of Trump and blame it on Iran or Iran to start World War III? So, I think that the Trump assassination attempt was obviously an inside job. I think when you look at the assassination attempt itself, this is appropriate for this. Here's a video where you can actually see, this is 3 minutes before the shots. You can actually see the guy run across the roof. Unbelievable. Anyway, so yes, the answer is yes. I think when you look at all of the catastrophic failures at that assassination attempt, you're talking about things like 5, 6 things that are not 1 in 10 odds of happening. Errors that they're not 1 in 10 odds of happening at an event. I mean, again, keep in mind that the Secret Service has been doing this for decades. They're good at it. They are extremely well trained, or they should be, but they've been doing this for decades. I don't believe they're actually that incompetent. When you have catastrophic errors, like that guy being on that roof, running across there, Trump's still on the stage, right? That's not, a 1 in 10 chance of happening at a rally. That's not a 1 in 100 chance of that happening at a rally. That's not a 1 in 1,000 chance happening at a rally. These rallies, they're dealing with lots of rallies all the time, lots of big events all the time. That maybe it's a 1 in 10,000 chance of happening. Maybe that low. That guy being on the roof. The fact that they didn't get Trump off the stage. That's not a 1 in 10 chance of happening. That's not 1 in 100 rallies chance of happening. That's not 1 in 1,000 rallies chance of happening. Maybe it's 1 in 10,000. I have to think it's got to be more than that. 50,000, 100,000. The fact that 3 hours before, the shooter drove in behind some Secret Service guys. They noticed he was there and nobody did anything, went up to him, checked him out, said, you can't come in here. You can't drive into this private area. Like, that's not 1 in 10. You got a 1 in 10 chance of that working? I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe you have a 1 in 1,000 chance of that happening. You start adding these things up and the odds become astronomical of them all happening at the same time. And there's like 6 at least of these things. 6, 1 in 10,000 rally events or errors. I'm not believing that. This was an inside job. They've been attacking him for year after year after year with ridiculous lawfare charges over and over and over again, 2 ridiculous impeachments. They've been doing everything they can to try and get rid of him. They've gone after his family, everything they can possibly do. Just a tsunami of media propaganda against him, obviously coordinated with whatever deep state agent you want to choose. This is clearly an inside job, is my point. Now, to get back to get rid of Trump and blame it on Iran. Yeah, so the Iran story came out not long after, right? Kind of feels like that was a bit odd. all of a sudden, oh, there was some link to Iran. This kid in Butler, this nerd in Butler, has links to Iran. Really? We're supposed to believe that? It kind of feels like it wasn't a series of catastrophic mistakes. Kind of seems like everything almost went perfect. Almost. They didn't count on Trump being a God emperor. That was their mistake. But it feels like no, it doesn't feel like a bunch of stuff went wrong. Everything went right, almost, except for right at the end. And then all of a sudden you've got this Iran connection. That's very strange to me. The whole thing, I mean, it just stinks to high heaven. Do I know that? Would I say that? Would I bet my house on using it to start a war with Iran and start World War III? No, but I think it looks pretty suspicious. I mean, putting that out there, very weird, right? So I'm not going to say no, though. I'm not going to say no, but definitely I think that it was an inside job. And would they use it to try and exploit it for some other goal of the deep state? Sure. What I'm saying is that's not a crazy idea. And I think it's plausible. Let's see. Antipop says if they got Trump, they would have got old Joe next to start a civil war. Well, I mean, who knows at this point, right? Like things are so crazy. Rumbum's saying Antipop 100%. Retarded Chicks is saying, what a setup. Yeah. It's almost as if they were trying to make it obvious too, right? Like almost rubbing people's face in it. Like, look, we can do whatever we want because they've spent like 8 years now just literally doing whatever they want to Trump. It feels like just that final statement, like we can do whatever we want and it can be, we're not even going to try and really hide it. We're going to make it so obvious that it's just clear, right? We win. Rumbum says, one fuck up, okay, but 6 in a row? Come on. Any honest person has to see that this was an inside job. Yes, and yes. Rumbum says, isn't China close with Iran now? Yeah, I think that they've got ties together for sure. China wants their oil. Let's see. Xerxes says, Darren Beatty, Revolver News. Okay, I know him. I've seen him on Timcast, and I've also read some of their stuff on Revolver. They're good. Is paralleling the phony bomb scare for Harris on January 6th and the phony Secret Service behavior for Trump's assassination attempt. Yeah. I mean, we've seen enough, right? We've seen enough. It's kind of obvious at this point. I think we've seen enough. All right. So I think we're going to, so right now we're streaming on Rumble and YouTube at the same time. And because of YouTube censorship, I got to kind of cut the stream short on YouTube. I'm sure there's enough for them to have a great time censoring the stream so far. But I've been having problems with them lately. So we are not going to continue on YouTube. We will continue on Rumble. Because Rumble is it's a safe space. It's a safe space for us. Whereas YouTube is not. So if you want to continue, if you're watching on YouTube right now and you want to continue watching, jump over to Rumble. The water's fine. We got a great community over here, an awesome community. Come in, dip your toes in the chat. You'll have a great time. Everybody's very, very friendly. But otherwise, I will see you maybe Tuesday on YouTube. Anyway, see ya. Thanks for showing up, but we got to move on. And we are continuing on Rumble. Good night.